I am joined by Laure Jackson. Hello, Anne.
Hello, it is great to be here.
I had a drink just before we started. My voice still got all funny. Anyway, hello. How are you doing?
Hello, I am very well, thank you.
Last week, because I wrote it down and actually found it, we talked about sensory healthy nature, which is part of this ongoing series of who knows how long. Rather than saying my husband has an issue holding things, we're looking at nature or offices or something of that nature to say, well, how do we improve that for our sensory health? I'm enjoying this quite a lot. I suspect you may be as well.
I love the fact that it's just so different to what I typically do in my day to day because people come to me with their struggles, which is exactly why they're coming to me in the first place. It's like, I need help. We've got a problem with this. What can I do about it? What can I do? So that's exactly what I do. Whereas here it's like, let's explore what life is like and see how we can apply sensory strategy, sensory thinking, sensory health within that activity or that experience or how we live life. I like it.
Now, this isn't the topic for today, but I got thinking about the fact that we went to a day's conference for Christians in Media called Engage at Sky Group. We were there. We did live radio from about 9 o'clock through to I think about 4:30 in the end. Now, we like what we do. We do it quite a lot, so it's not quite as an ordeal as it might initially think. We love it and it's great fun, and that offsets any tiredness, and it's tiring, but the excitement offsets it. And I think that sort of moment of, yes, this is tiring, but we love it so much, we kind of don't care about the tiredness, which was there. Getting up at 5 o'clock in the morning, getting home at 11 p.m. It's a long day. But you know what? We were bouncing and buzzing when we came back, which I know I did share. But it was the point of that I wanted to bring out just before we get into today's topic of, yes, this is tiring, but we're loving it and it makes it easier. And in sensory health, if we don't understand what's going on, it's more tiring. If somebody just dropped along, came alongside us, oh, I'll do live radio for the day, they'd probably be on their knees asleep, possibly, because you need to build up to it. And we do this full time. This is our job. But I was interested in when we enjoy something, it's not just it makes a bit of a difference, it's kind of an exponentially huge difference. So the tiredness is offset by the excitement, which means the tiredness, we just don't care. So we were fully engaged. Sensory health was on overload in a good way, surrounded by people. But our enjoyment of what we were doing transformed the very nature of what it was we were doing and how tired we should, he says carefully, have been.
Yes. Yes, absolutely. And that is why the very crux of any work that we do, any way of equipping and empowering people that I do, it has to be that sense of motivation. In order for us to be the most integrated and happiest that we can be, there has to be a motivation. There has to be an enjoyment factor of it. And that's where we get the balance of, I'm always pushing people for a little bit of risk, a little bit of doing something, because you can then feel successful. And being successful at something is part of that enjoyment factor. The risk and success in an activity, in doing something, in completing something, in finishing something, in accomplishing something, that those are the things that really keep us well. Because it hits if it does hit our senses, it should hit our senses, and it hits those pleasure centers in the brain too. And that's where the power of motivation and enjoyment is so important in therapy and working with anybody. Really is.
I mean, thinking about just Alcoholics Anonymous, just for an example, the assumption would be you've got a problem with alcohol addiction. You go to Alcoholics Anonymous, and they help you to stay off alcohol. But unless you're motivated to want to do that, it doesn't matter how many people, how many restrictions, how many difficulties are put in your way to not do that. Everybody can get rid of every single alcohol bottle in the house. If you don't want to stop, you're not going to stop just because somebody comes along and says you must not do this anymore. Well,
Mhm.
yeah, of course you're not, because you need to want to change.
Yeah. And a slight offshoot of that from a sensory perspective is that we need to care for those people who are that motivated to do something, especially those who want that social connection, say, for example, within a school situation. but the ramifications are huge and really lead into burnout and stress after an event, or even leading up to an event, or just a couple of years down the line, and the body's just gone, I can't do it anymore. They're really motivated to do something, to be part of something, but it's not a good sensory fit. And that just, that leads to disaster at some point down the line, unless we can get the body back into a better place of health, to make sure that it doesn't go into shutdown or a breakdown or a burnout or all of that. So yeah, there's always two sides to motivation. There's always two sides to everything, isn't it? But that is the downside of motivation, especially if you are dealing with sensory processing issues. Um, mm.
Because initially you might need, and we've touched on this before in terms of physical health, like medical health, doctors and that sort of thing, that sometimes you do need some sort of, I'm using the word intervention very carefully, but you do need somebody to say, right, you need to stop doing this because this is going to hurt you. You're drinking too much alcohol, just going back to that example. There may well be you need to stop drinking alcohol or you need to stop taking dangerous drugs, and we're going to prevent that from happening initially. But at some point, without motivation, that's never enough, because you have to be the driver, not of your success. That's a bit airy fairy nonsense, but you do have to be in control of wanting to change, because otherwise you're too reliant on others. Now, I guess with what you do initially, the people that you're helping, they're very reliant upon you because they don't know what to do. They don't know how to implement this or that. And so they're going to be relying on you a lot. But eventually, you can't be that involved in every single person's life indefinitely. Otherwise, you'll help nobody else. And that's why anybody would need to get them to do it for themselves, which is, I guess, what you do. But the difficulty is, it's nice to have someone who knows what they're doing helping. But at some point, you need to think, I can do this myself.
Yeah. That's it. The key thing, that the way that I'm developing the sensory super system now, it is there in place, but we're creating a little something extra, whether we call it a pocket version or a mini, to be able to at least get people started with knowing that it's okay. The whole thing about the sensory super system is it's really confidence building, but it takes a process. It takes a while for people to, because I'm trying to train them to begin with. I'm trying to train them in some stuff before we actually get to the nitty gritty of actually seeing change. So I'm flipping a little bit, or I'm adding something extra in so that we can get this pocket version so they can see success really quickly. So there's a little bit of assessment. There's enough of an assessment so that we can try and get to the root of something to be able to deal with it, but it's quick. So I'm trying to get, let's get some quick things so that we can get the motivation so they will continue and go deeper and actually get better at it. But when you're trying to hand something over to somebody, it's a skill. It's a real art. Because people would love someone just to come alongside and do things for them. And it's just like, well, actually longer term, that really isn't the most effective. There's got to be a point when you take the responsibility for yourself and you are built up in knowing how to manage those issues as best as possible.
But that confidence building is so important, because it's like anything. When you start to do something, you might see some amazing results, and then it kind of tails off a little bit. You're thinking, well, it's not working anymore. Well, it might be working, but actually then we need a professional to come along and say, no, you keep going. It is making a difference. But of course, as you're assessing your own life, it's harder to see some of those improvements because they might be quite slow and gradual. Looking out of it, someone looks at you every day, they can see the differences, but you looking at yourself throughout every day, I'm not getting any better. I've still got a walking stick, or I still need to have a thing on the tap to help me turn it, or whatever. But then somebody else can say, yes, but you're better than yesterday because I can see that, which is where having people alongside us really helps.
Oh, that's so crucial, and part of what I'm trying to do within my system is say, let's get some actual facts about how often is somebody not happy during the day? How often are they crying? How long are they crying for? How long can they stand on one leg for example? We try and get both the quantitative and the qualitative so that we can come back. I think that's too many T's in there, actually, wasn't it? Quantitative. I don't know. Anyway, so that we've got a bit of both, because then because it is hard. It's really hard to look at yourself. 5 years, it's easier, but actually for days and weeks and months, it's you need something a little bit more tangible. Or it's helpful to have something a little bit more tangible, or you have somebody coming in from the outside and saying, look, I can see this, and I can see this, and this, and that in itself is so motivating for people to continue doing what is right.
Right, let's get into today's topic. Let me paint a picture for you. You can close your eyes if it'll help you, not if you're driving. But imagine, set the scene. You've got beautiful trees, there's a little bench area, there's some grass, and you've got your picnic basket, and you go to sit down and you think, oh, it's a bit dry. We'll put a blanket on the floor, and you get your food set out on the blanket, and you've got some family members, and everyone's getting in, and someone opens a bottle of ketchup and a wasp makes a beeline for you. How do we help people have better and more successful, positive family building moments when we're having a picnic in nature, just taking on the nature thing from last week? How do we make picnics better? Because let's face it, if you've got apple juice or cider or ketchup or jam or lemon curd tarts, you know that every wasp in 100-mile area is going to say, it's lunch.
Yes. Oh, what a nightmare for people, isn't it? Just, oh dear. Yeah. It's one of the things I do work on actually with families over time. But from a sensory perspective, I try and work on the individual skin, and I actually work on their auditory processing, as well as their visual processing of what wasps are, or bees, same thing, and the impacts. And so, where do I start? Okay, let me start with desensitizing, because that's a big thing. We will come to setting the body up beforehand. We'll come to setting the body up afterwards. We will come to looking at the whole picnic and actually, do you need those things in the first place? But there's always going to be something that is going to attract a beastie of some kind. So that's we take that as read. But often it's the auditory. It's the sound of something around you that is worse, that brings the anticipation up of, I really don't like this. So let's just get in there, bring something for them to listen to, bring your background music, your headphones, whatever, so we can take the auditory out of the situation. Months before the summer, or whenever it is you start to go out, let's get the books for you to see, the books of the wasp, the books of the things, and have them watching and learning about the beasts, learning about this, that, and the other. Not that they are going to touch them, not that they are not going to have that response to them, but the response when they actually see one is not going to fire off, because we have memories associated with the vision that is much more positive, because they've seen it in a book, they understand them so much more, and there isn't the same spontaneous fear factor. So we set that up from a visual perspective. You can also have the buzzing if you don't happen to have the headphones, or what else, the like something for them to listen to when you're actually at the picnic. You can actually train them to listen to the sounds of a wasp or a bee, and again, not be so provoked, not be so triggered by the sounds. So it's looking, what are the things that are associated with a wasp or a bee? The sounds, the sights, the smells, the movements, the way that you react. What are you aware of from a touch perspective? And it could be that you have undergarments so that you are not going to get put off from a tactile perspective. You don't need to be in full kind of camo, or, full, but just enough of a layer to protect yourself, or have those smelly things that will repel them, so that, again, the fear factor of what happens if it comes near me and it comes on my skin doesn't set you off into fight or flight, or dysregulate you and just spoil the picnic. So yeah, there's sights, there's sounds, there's preparation beforehand, watching the skin, dealing with it. Physically, proprioceptively getting out of there when one actually comes. You just leave it, but they're always going to come back, aren't they? Even if you leave at one point, and somebody manages to maybe shoo something away, or go and put a jam jar somewhere else, there's always going to be another one. So I don't think it's worth really just getting away. But you can use proprioceptive strategies to keep you more regulated in the process, and breathe deeply and all of those things to try and cope with it. But yeah, there is a lot to it. What would you think, sir? What would you come up with? What would you do?
Well, there are a few things that are obvious to me. Don't take ketchup is a good one, which sort of ruins it if you're having, I don't know, sausage burgers or a barbecue or something. You want ketchup or brown sauce, but you can always perhaps remove some of those items. It was funny, I know I've talked about flies in our house because we live in the middle of nowhere in the countryside. We have covers for everything. We have these big, like a fabric thing. You pull it out and you have this square sort of curved dome. You can stick it over a plate and it protects it. And it's a really simple way of protecting your food. I think it was one of my lads saw a picture of King Charles at some barbecue buffet thing, and they had the same things. He's like, well, King Charles has it, so it must be okay. They look like ours. Probably not, but the same basic principle. But I think be careful of what you take, and be cautious of other people. Wasps and bees, the only difference I can think of are people who would have an absolute right to panic attack if you're allergic to bees. Yes, please have a panic attack and move away fast. I've been around a couple of people who've had that, and I've had to deal with whatever buzzing thing is. This is, I thought it was a wasp, but I couldn't take the chance. Right. So I've killed whatever it was, and they're fine. So it's about thinking about others is definitely part of this, because they can actually be killed by a bee. So you need to be conscious. I know I've shared this one before. We went to a barbecue at some friends, and they were farmers, and they very much said, we never kill wasps. And I just thought that might change soon on your property. And there were loads, and they just learned to work with them. But here's the thing that's relevant for what we're talking about. Their calmness of not swatting and swiping and panicking actually created more calm in us as a family, who, if we see a wasp, it's going to die badly. But actually being around those folk, they were really quite relaxed and calm. I mean, they weren't going to take a bite of a food with a wasp on it. They're not stupid. Yeah. But they also were much more calm than we would naturally be. And that actually infiltrated us in a good way. Their calmness became calming for us.
That is a powerful phase of co-regulation. So parents do it with children, but actually we are massively, we do affect each other. And that's a lovely thing, that they can do that. And that they will do that. And I was just thinking, when you were talking about, I think, were you talking about those little tents that go over sandwiches? Yeah, because then I was thinking of actually what we need are the gazebos that are fully, that if it's a genuine issue for a family, that you have a tent that is basically as big as that. And that it is, you've got your like mosquito net goes right the way around you and all the way around you, so that you and your family can actually go out into nature. Okay, you're going to have the net in front of you to look out to it, but it is enclosed, and everybody's going to be happy within there. They may lose a bit of the view, but you will still get the air, you'll still get the breeze, you'll still see the sunshine, but everyone will be so much more relaxed, and there will be the element of co-regulation, because actually everybody within that big tent will be confident and relaxed, because nothing's getting through that netting.
We actually were loaned one time. We went to a festival and someone said, take this tent thing, and it was fully sided. You know, it was completely like you said, like a mosquito net. It's a bit stronger because it was effectively a posh gazebo, but it was great because when we shut the door, I thought, well, this is interesting. You still get breeze coming through. You can still be part of everything. You can talk to people and see people. But if you do have anaphylaxis from bees, that would be a good investment. If you've got a child who just cannot cope, or perhaps even an overactive dog who likes chasing flies and wasps and doesn't understand the difference, then that thing could be really, really helpful. Mosquito nets are not that expensive. A posh gazebo might be, but there's always another workaround. You can sit in your car, which isn't quite so much fun, but there's always a workaround. But I suppose, and you were sort of throwing it back at me, what I would do, well, I think I would assess how much do I need to make sure that wasps don't come near to me. Now, if I've been stung by a wasp, yes, it's going to hurt. But the pain, will eventually subside. It's not going to be permanent. And I guess that's part of the thing. But the other thing that you said, which is really key, it's the noise and the sight. If I can see a wasp outside the window, I don't care. I can blow raspberries at it all day long. It's not going to hurt me. But if the window's open, I don't have quite the same reaction, because it can get in. And it's the noise plus the sight coupled with fear that
Mm.
actually can be dysregulating to the most sane people.
Yeah, it can. It's what it does. Yeah, remarkable that just seeing something, and that's why actually training the brain in a positive way, because most of us will associate something negative. We see a wasp, and goodness me, I've been stung. I was stung in my eye once, and my whole eye, I mean, I got over it. So I have that memory that I actually got over that, but I also do have that real memory of what it felt like and then what it did to my eye. I was playing with it. That's a silly thing. Do not play with a wasp. I
No.
was trying to catch it. And it's like, no, don't do that. But we're trying to replace, because of the power of memory within our limbic system, with how it connects with our senses, we need to try and help the brain to get some positive associations with what it sees, within wisdom, because they can be nasty little little creatures, or not very pleasant to receive. And I was also thinking, actually, when I was little, I went skiing, and the ski instructor said, the sooner you fall, the less afraid of it you'll be. Now, it's an interesting one, whether you'd apply the same to being stung. Is it worth, it's just putting it out there, is it worth experimenting with what it's like to feel a little pain and know that you will get over it? For some people, for who the fear is that much, it'll be very interesting to kind of build up a pain response, and to know that you can actually cope with pain, under a controlled, in a very controlled, in a very safe, and a very honoring way, so that it just takes out the power of the fear of pain, being exposed to it little bit by little bit. That would be under guidance for sure. Not something that you put somebody under if they're not willing or wanting, or if you don't do it really carefully.
It's not quite so relevant, but it came to mind. We used to have a coal fire, and we had a fire guard around it, as you do with little children. It's a sensible thing. And Joe and I would always say, it's such a horrible, ugly thing in the lounge. It takes out so much space, this big kind of very large structure. Is there not a better way of doing this? And we thought, I think we want to get rid of this. I'd rather teach the children not to play with the fire than stop them from accidentally falling in. Because how do you accidentally fall into a fireplace? Because you're being silly and you're not being sensible. Now, needs to be sensibly applied. But I actually let one of my children pick up a poker, which was not red hot. I've used this before. So they got very scared by it and let go of it. They never, ever went near the fire again. Now, they were in no fear of burning themselves. I would have happily held that myself. But I let them ineffectively play under control to pick up this poker that was hot, not too hot, and they got scared. And it was enough for them actually never to try again. And the thing is, there is an element of, we have to teach our children, and sometimes you have to get them a little bit closer to danger for them to really see the danger. I do the same with knives. We don't have dull knives. It's more dangerous. Sharp knives are much safer. It sounds backwards. It's really, really not, actually, when you start to look at it properly. So my children at very early age were using very, very properly sharp knives under control, because then there's less of a danger. So in a sense, I'm desensitizing them, to use, language kind of, I'm desensitizing them to the fear of a sharp blade, by teaching them to use a sharp blade. I'm desensitizing them to being stupid around a fireplace, if you will, by increasing hot poker. Now, they were never in for being burned. I always state that very clearly, but it was a really good example and lesson. And sometimes there is no gentle lesson that you can really teach.
No, that's hard for us as adults, if we're dealing with children, and it's also hard for us to receive. But actually, that sometimes, as adults, it's the only way that we learn. Stuff happens, hard stuff happens, and stuff happens to us, and it's only experiencing something that we grow through it, for children and for adults.
And I think with the fireplace thing, we didn't like the look of the fire guard. We're preventing them from being hurt, kind of. But actually, what are they learning from that? They're learning that over there isn't going to hurt me. Well, do you know what? That over there can hurt you. And what our thought was, what if we go to somebody's house who doesn't have that and they start to want to play with it? And we just thought, no, we're getting rid of the fire guard because it's actually not helping. Now, we're still a thing in front of the fireplace because we used to have wood and it spits. But it was just one of those, we need to teach them how to do this more safely, because otherwise they may get more severely burned literally later down the line. And I think sometimes we just have to, as parents in particular, think about that. And as
Mm.
adults as well. Hornets, let's just go to hornets for a moment. If you've ever heard a hornet, you know the sound I'm talking about. I read up on them because where we live, we get hornets because there's bees around and they attack the bees. So you're going to get hornets. But we
Okay.
had hornets coming into our lounge fairly frequently. How do we deal with that? One, we shut the grate at night because it was only in the summer and we had the grate to the fire open. So we shut that. So if they get in, they're going out the same way up the chimney. But I read up on it, which really, really helped me because I thought, I'm going to die. This massive thing is in my home. It's the size of a bear and it's going to kill me. It's a hornet, okay? But in my mind, it gets bigger.
Mm.
I read up on them. They don't like people. They're not really aggressive. They sound terrifying, yes, but the advice is don't swipe at them because they're going to defend themselves. They'll take quite a lot before they attack you. Open a window, shut the door, walk out, and they'll disappear. And we tried that one of the days and it works. So, how do we get rid of the problem? Well, we shut the grate. That prevents the problem in the first place. But just in case, I read up on it. Now we don't go after the hornets. We just, because we're going to get them occasionally, we open the window, shut the door, and they disappear.
Mm. There you go. Lovely. And a little bit of knowledge is really important from that perspective because
Yes.
other things that they may not do that, but hornets, they will.
Yeah. Wasps, no, they just bat crazy. It's just nuts. I think I'm enjoying these sessions because it takes a different perspective on things we're going to understand. We all know what a picnic looks like, but how do we do that better? And the thing is about like desensitizing, as you were saying, read a book about it. That's not for children.
No.
Not for children. If you're an adult with an aversion to wasps, understand them. They
Yeah.
are very useful. That helps me when I want to swat one and kill it. I remember, they actually do have a purpose in the garden. They're quite useful. I wish God had made them more useful without the stinger. That'll be a chat for God one day. But actually understanding the reality is so helpful to desensitizing us as adults.
Mm.
So don't think that this advice is just for kids. It's for adults as well.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely is.
And if I see a wasp, I'm probably going to kill it. But anyway, that's a different problem. Right, Anne, thank you. If you want to connect with Anne at any point, you can send us questions about this. Are you mad? Maybe about wasps? They're horrible. And fine, you have your opinion is okay. But if you want to ask any questions, you can do. Pure247radio.org, pure247radio.org/ALJ. You can ask Anne and connect with her and the amazing stuff she does on the Isle of Jersey and beyond.
Thank you, sir.